You're listening to the Oracle Talk Radio Network.
Hello, I'm Sabrina Carpenter.
I'm Dasha.
Hey, I'm Billie Eilish.
What's up, guys? I'm Camila Cabello.
Hey, this is Tate McRae.
I love this station.
I love this station.
You're listening to Chasing Prophecy Radio, where we discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. On the Oracle Talk Radio Network. Broadcasting live in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia.
If it's unexplainable, we're talking about it.
Whether you're a believer or a skeptic,
we cover everything where the unknown becomes the known.
And now, here are your hosts, Jenny Nicasio and Tom Callway.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Chasing Prophecy on the Oracle Talk Radio Network. I'm Jenny Nicasio. Tom is on assignment. Sean Kelly is filling in for him. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We're going to have a fun time tonight, Sean. You're not going to miss this. Anybody out there, you're not going to miss this show because we got an incredible guest joining us tonight, Mike Ricksecker. I might be screwing up his name again. You've seen him on Ancient Aliens and Alaska Triangle and the Unexplained, the Gaia TV. The man has literally spent decades uncovering the truth behind paranormal, shadow entities, ancient civilizations, and even time travel. So before he's not here yet, but I just want to let you know. So I hope you can join. Hope you can save this link. It's going to be a fun night tonight, Sean.
Yep, definitely. I'm looking forward to our guest tonight.
Good. And if you're in the chat, go ahead. I'm sorry.
There's my boy. Hey, Kurt.
Hi, Joe.
Joe, yes.
Hey, guys. I love you too,
Joe. Yeah, there you go, Joe. I'm telling you, man. I mean, all she needs to do is get in her car.
Hey,
3 hours.
Joe, I got a wig. I like role playing. No, I'm teasing.
Good to see
I
you,
like
Kurt.
this. Hi, Kurt. Yeah, it's gonna be a good show tonight, guys. It's Holy Thursday. I normally don't even do anything on Holy Thursday, but I totally forgot it was Holy Thursday. But I'm so glad we're here with you anyways. And if you can share the link, I would appreciate it. Share the link. And I'm so glad for you guys for being here so early. I just got to quit saying I want you guys we're gonna have a contest tonight. I want you to count how many times I say
Thank you, Joe. Well, you're on number 4 now.
Thanks, Joe. It's going to be a cool show tonight. We're going to talk to Rick. He's been on all kind of shows, paranormal shows, and he's I don't know. He doesn't look as old as he says he is. He's been doing it for 30 years. So, okay, I almost said it again. Almost made 5.
Why do you say all the time? I want to know why you say
Namaste. No.
Namaste. Nah, listen to her. Covering her
I'm a
ass.
contactee. Donut. I love donut. Well, I can't eat them. But I am from a different solar system.
Yes, she is.
Are you,
man.
Donut?
She's
Donut.
like from the ninth, whatever we just said you were on.
What?
What you do is you launch off in a UFO, and then Donut, you just go straight, and then you hang her right at Neptune, and that's where she lives up there. She lives
Riding cowboy.
Well, she's in a good mood, guys. Joe, I'd buckle yourself in, man.
It's a rhinestone cowboy.
So, how have you been the past week?
Me?
Yeah.
Busy. I've been so busy that like I said, I totally forgot today was Holy Thursday, or I would have went to church. I did the online church. But I want to tell everybody, if you haven't already picked up your book, pick up from the sky. It's available on Amazon and all bookstores nationwide. It's a story about my friend Samantha Hunter and her love interest, Lucian, who's from a different planet.
Yeah, I'm not her love interest. No one loves me.
Aww.
No one does.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
But anyways, I'm gonna play a video before our guest gets here. He'll give you a prequel to what we're gonna talk about. So he's into all this stuff. Okay.
5 billion years until the sun turns into a red giant and encompasses the earth and destroys us.
Yep.
So we have to get off here at some point if we want to survive. We got a little time yet, and that's a long time.
Let's see where he's
and in
at.
that time, there could be another life form, intelligent life form that has.
But you never know. He might have got the wrong link.
Developed
What happened to
civilization,
doing that?
technology, maybe even time travel technology. So could be time traveler that is indigenous here to Earth, but not necessarily human. It could still be extraterrestrial living here on Earth and a time traveler all at the same time.
So that's one of the videos.
Paper on the scans of the Great Pyramid from a couple of years ago, which is what got you involved with the team when you saw that. But she's also saying that this method is patented. So there is a process for this. This isn't just some, wild, crazy scheme. Like I've seen, officials from Egypt saying things like, well, it's fake news. It's like, well, wait a second here. It can't be fake. You have real scientists using real scans and they had a real press conference. None of that is fake.
Well, I think a lot of people, some people are like, they can't do GPR that far. I'm like, it's not GPR.
It's not GPR.
People thinking it's thermal imaging or it's not any of that. But even people who get onto this page where it's SAR, that's a different thing. Synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography is a thing that has been around for a while. They've used it to look into identifying volcanoes and looking into inner structures of subterranean things. But it's just that Filippo Biondi, who is a brilliant scientist, came up with an innovation that adapts it in this way that can actually penetrate down that far. When you're talking about 2 kilometers down, like they mentioned, that's getting, I think. To
Do you remember we were talking about the pyramids?
New innovation.
That's what that's about.
SAR technology.
I sent him another link just in case for some reason he didn't get it. Pretty cool.
No, I don't know. It's like pretty interesting. I'm more interested in about the shadow figures that he the shadows, and then the portals that are out in the woods. There's a ton of portals.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Did I show you this one?
The past. They are.
Did I show you that one?
And the moment dissipated away.
Here he is.
And as she's sitting there, all of a sudden in the dining room, which again is where the seance happened.
Yes.
His mic isn't
she sees
turned
morphing
on.
into existence this family
His camera
out
maybe
of
it's
the
not going to be.
1700s. There's a woman cooking over an open hearth. And that at that time, that fireplace in that
we're
room
going to talk
had
about a
been
lot of
boarded
this
up
stuff.
for the previous 100 years. It was boarded. It's not boarded up now, but it had been.
He's in the green room, so we'll introduce him soon. Okay. We're going to bring him on. He's already there. So let's take this out. I'm getting confused because there's so many pictures of him. Okay.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm just going to read your quick bio.
Sure.
I read a little bit about it in the beginning, but so like I said, we have an incredible guest today joining us, Mike Ricksecker. Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. He's been on Ancient Aliens, the Alaskan Triangle, Unexplained, the Unexplained. The man has literally spent decades uncovering the truth behind the paranormal, shadow entities, ancient civilizations, and even time travel. Mike is an award-winning author, filmmaker, and one of the most respected voices in the field of the supernatural research. So tonight, I want to bring him on. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, wow.
Thank you for being here. Thank you.
What did you say, Sean?
I said thank you for him being on.
Oh, I couldn't hear. I'm
He's
sorry.
being polite.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much. Wow. I saw you. I've been following you for a while.
Oh, thank you.
You're like up there with all the, you know, I won't say any names, but there's a lot of them we've had on the show. So tell me, first off, before we talk about all this stuff, I just want to ask you, what brought you into the field? I just wanted to know
Yeah.
what brought you into it.
I mean, I'm an experiencer. You know, it goes all the way back to when I was about 8 years old. Woke up in the middle of the night one night, and there was a tall, dark shadow standing in the corner of my bedroom. And at that time, I mean, I'm 8. You know, I don't know anything about shadow people or anything like that. I just thought that somebody had broken into the house and was there to either steal something or, you know, maybe kill me. You know, it's about where your mind goes at that age. And you know, I was frightened. I was scared. I'm trying to scream, but I'm so frightened. Nothing's coming out of my mouth. And the thing actually approached my bed, leaned over. I was staring into this blank black face. There's nothing there. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. It's just nothing there. So I'm continuing to try to scream, but I can't. And this thing did something really unusual. It grabbed me by the wrists, crossed my arms across my body, and then ran off down the hall, and of all places into a closet. So by that point, I found my voice, found my legs, ran off screaming to my parents' bedroom, telling them what had happened. And they're trying to calm me down and console me, trying to tell me I just had a bad dream. But I knew I hadn't had a bad dream. I was awake for this whole thing. So that was like really my first significant paranormal experience. It was a one-off. I would never call that a haunted house. But when we moved from there, when I was 13, and the next house that we moved into actually had some shadow activity that was going on that was quite on a quite regular basis, but totally different from that first experience I'd had when I was a kid. So yeah, this one was more translucent in nature, would just like run off if you look at it. I ended up calling him Tom, like Peeping Tom, because he'd peep in my bedroom, say, "Hi, Tom," and you know, off he'd go. Yeah.
You call them out and they leave.
Seriously, how old were you at the time? How old were you?
That time I was 13. So there's about a 5-year difference between those incidents. Yeah. So yeah, and my mother had seen the activity in that second house as well, because I ended up asking her about it, and that's why I ended up getting so friendly with this thing. Because you know, after several days, we'd moved in, and I'm unpacking boxes, putting things away, and seeing this thing in my doorway, and I ended up asking my mom about it, and she was like, "Yeah, I've seen that too," but she was just like, she wasn't alarmed by it. So it was like, well, Mom's okay with it, so I guess I can be okay with it too. And that's when I decided to call him Tom. And yeah.
That's crazy. The reason why I asked is because my son had a similar experience, and it's kind of stuck with him his whole life. But he never went. He became a doctor.
No.
So I don't know. I mean, he had some strength, like shadow people. We had Brian Sharpless on. He's a psychologist. He was on our first show when we were dealing with. We called them sleep demons. Now, do you think it was like an alien entity or a spirit?
Well, here's the thing is, I mean, because they can be a variety of different things. They can be ETs, they can be interdimensional beings, they can actually be astral projections of people, and they can be spirit, you know, human spirit not fully manifesting. So it just depends on the particular shadow and the particular situation and all that, which is why I always say we need to investigate these things. You can't just, like, people ask me, what's a shadow person? I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I have a whole book on this subject trying to break down all the different kinds. How long do you have? But I did go through a hypnotic regression a few years back now to actually get to the bottom of, okay, what exactly happened to me that night? And what was really, really fascinating is when we were in this session, I was in the hypnotic state, and we went back to that time. I actually got to see the entire incident play out from the perspective of the being. It was basically channeling the being. I was, you know, looking down on my little 8-year-old body, which was really bizarre, but there I was, and I could actually feel everything that the entity was feeling. So the hypnotherapist, Ariana Corsino, you know, she's driving the questions and asking, of course, you know, who the being was, where it came from, that sort of thing. So kind of long story short, what we discovered that was that it was a being from another dimension. It kept calling it another space rather than another dimension, which was kind of interesting. But essentially, it was a being from another dimension that was there to study humanity. It essentially was assigned to the bedroom of a small child that particular evening. Didn't realize that I could see it until I started reacting. And when that happened, it was just trying to get out of there. So the whole crossing my arms was, it was actually trying to put me in like a self hug to calm me down. And I could actually see like it patting my wrists. And then I got out of there so it could stop scaring me.
May I ask you a question? When you saw the shadow at 8 years old, I know from past experience and all the research I have done on them, my question to you would be, did you have a traumatic experience before the age of 8 that kind of like opened up your sixth sense or your eye?
Yeah, I mean, not that I'm aware of. I don't know of any. Yeah.
Because usually what happens is when someone has a traumatic experience, no matter what age it is, they call them walk-ins. I'm not sure if you ever heard of them.
Well, I've heard of them.
I've heard the term walk-in.
And a new one jumps in. Yeah. Well, one jumps out and the other one comes in, and you're sensitive, your psyche becomes a lot much stronger. That's why I needed to ask that question.
Yeah, that was not the case with me. I am familiar with walk-ins, but yeah, I didn't have a traumatic experience and did not have a near-death experience or anything like that.
Okay.
I was pretty much just a normal kid, and this happened. Yeah.
So what exactly, we're talking about shadow people, and is this what is the shadow dimension that you're talking about in your books?
Yeah, the Shadow Dimension. Well, that's a 6-part docu-series that I've put together. It's running on Tubi TV and the Roku channel. And so, basically what I'm calling the Shadow Dimension, it's basically that idea that a lot of what we're talking about has to do with the varying dimensions. So when we are experiencing the shadow entities, we talk about an interdimensional being. We have up to, according to our theoretical physics, up to 11 hyperspatial dimensions. So, a lot of these other dimensions are going to have other beings and entities and these sorts of things living within these dimensions. Now, some shadows can also be, if we're talking about dimensional play here, some of these shadow entities are also time slips. So, and time is, it's not linear. It's all here. It's all concurrent. It's all what we call it time, but it's really the fourth dimension. And beings that are outside of time, can come in and out to our dimension basically at will, and they can pick their points as to where they want to go. But here in the fourth dimension, with all time being concurrent, I call it stacked time. So each moment, like take where you're sitting right now, every moment that has happened, is happening, and will happen, are all there right now. Each moment like a photograph and a giant stack of photos. And every once in a while, too, those moments can resonate at the same frequency, and they bleed into another. So you might get a glimpse of an entire scene that plays out in front of you. You might have, or you might see, a couple of gentlemen sitting at a table, and they turn and look at you as if you're the ghost, that sort of thing. A really fascinating story that was related to me some years ago now was it was a young man. When he was a small child, he had walked into the kitchen and he saw a tall, dark hooded figure standing there by the kitchen table, scared him to death. He ran out. And this became the hooded shadow person story of the household for many years until he grew up. He's a young man and he's standing by the kitchen table. He's wearing a hoodie and he sees a short shadow person come in through the doorway, stop, and take off. And he's like, oh my gosh, this was me the whole time. I saw myself when I was younger. I got the hoodie on and all that. And so some of these shadows can actually be a form of time slip and just not, tuning completely into the moment. You're only, because really everything comes down to frequency, resonance, energy, vibration. And he just wasn't totally synced into the moment, but got enough of a glimpse of himself.
Wow, that's incredible. Sean, what do you think about that?
That's interesting. Very, very interesting. I'm learning a lot tonight, and I appreciate your knowledge and sharing it with us.
No, of course.
It's like John Ventures in the house.
But shadow people, to me, I've been investigating the paranormal since 1983. Okay.
Mhm.
And for me, in my opinion on shadow people, is, they're walking like a tight line. Okay. And half of them are in their dimension, and the other half of the spirit is in our dimension. And I believe that the light reflecting from our dimension, okay, it casts a shadow on them. What I don't like about it is when people go around and say shadow people are evil, shadow people are
Right.
nasty,
Yeah.
or whatever. Not all of them are. They're
Yeah, and I
not
absolutely
that.
agree with
I
you.
believe
That's
they're spirit.
Yeah,
We don't know
that's
for
a big
sure.
part of my book, A Walk in the Shadows, is I try to dispel that notion, and I even break it down very simplistically. Like I know this is gonna sound really really simple, but shadow people, in a lot of ways, are like humans. Some humans are good, some humans are bad. Some shadow people are good,
Right.
some shadow people are bad. Just depends on
Exactly.
the particular being. And yeah, you're right about the light. I mean, and that's what it all really comes down to is it's the way that the light is coming into our eyes and how we see the world around us. We only see into a very very narrow band of the entire spectrum. So it's the way that we are viewing light, and we don't have the proper geometry, so to speak, to be able to see the
Right.
entire being. We're only seeing a glimpse of what they look like in our dimension. Because yeah, you're right, they're many of them are from another dimension, and we're just getting a vague glimpse of them.
John Ventry wants to know: do shadow people attach or pass through?
Again, it kind of depends on the shadow. It depends on what their goals are, what their aims are, what it is that they're trying to do. So you do have stories in which a person will go from location to location, and this particular shadow is following them. But then you have others where a great story that's related to me by a couple of sisters that they grew up in this house where there would be this shadow person wearing the hat that would always come up to the foot
The Hat
of
Man.
the one bed and just stare and look at the one girl. And this happened for years and years. He wouldn't never do anything. He'd just stare down at the girl.
Yes.
And then when they moved, yeah, he didn't follow. So you'd have to go back to that house and talk to the new owners to see if they had that recurring experience.
Yeah, when my whole I would say from 10 on until my early 20s, I had horrible, horrible, horrible shadow people. Usually it always looks like the gray. It always looks like the gray, and he's standing in front of my foot of my bed. And I always remember him pulling the covers off me. And I would
Okay.
grab them. He'd pull them off. And it was horrifying. And then sometimes I felt like I was hovering. I was above my bed. I felt like I was
Interesting.
above my, you know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
freaking. And it stayed
Yeah, I
with
have,
me.
a couple of the stories that I recount in the book. There was this one particular woman who she did have a nasty experience with a hooded shadow person where it picked her up by the ankles, lifted her up off the bed. But then there was another one later on down the road when she had a young boy who was very, very ill. And she kept seeing this shadow go into his room. So she's thinking like harbinger of death or whatever. And they kept going to the doctors, couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. She kept seeing the shadow go into the room. So one particular day they're at the doctor's office, and the doctor he's going to run the same tests again. But then as they're about to get up to leave, all of a sudden he stops and he turns his head as if somebody's speaking to him, turns back around and says, let's go ahead and run these other tests. And they do discover what was actually wrong with the boy, and they were able to heal him and cure him and all that. Never saw that shadow person again. This was her assessment, not mine, where she believes that the shadow was in the room, or whomever the shadow was in that room with the doctor and whispered into the doctor's ear what was going on with the boy. Even though
Oh,
you didn't
wow.
actually see the physical shadow, she believed it was actually there in the room with him. So her idea, the shadow was going into the boy's room to assess what was wrong with him and then pass that information on to the doctor.
That is crazy.
That's crazy. Yes, it
That
is.
is something. Yeah, that is something else. We have so many comments and questions in the chat. I can't keep up with all there's so many. There's Chris Hansen says,
Christine.
sorry. Others, they recognize energy streams like a street with lights. Did you ever hear anything like that?
I mean, it all comes back to energy, and light is energy. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
You see,
So everything. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm just saying there's talking about dimensional lights.
Oh, okay. No, so I'm right there with you, right? So everything what you do and what you talk about and what you videograph is all, to me, it's pure energy. And being in the paranormal field and being in some other type of fields that I belong in, or, you know, I hate saying the word practice, but I do it. You know, energy work is great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for
absolutely.
me at the beginning, a long time ago, was determining if it was good energy or bad energy. You know what I mean? And that's something that I had to work on. Did you have a time where you kind of like doubt what you felt?
I mean, that's a good question. I think here's the thing is that, we feel that energy, we get a feeling, we have that like intuition kick in that tells us what it is. And I think the human mind comes into play sometimes. And that's what ends up casting that doubt. I mean, I was a very well-educated person. So I think a lot of times that education will kind of get in the way sometimes, even though it has helped me in so many ways. I think other times it's a bit of a detriment because I start to overthink the situation, start to,
Right.
doubt what I'm actually feeling, what my intuition is, when, I should have just gone with that all along.
Yeah, I've noticed it happens. Like I always do that. I overthink everything, and you should just go with your first instinct of what you think it is. Now, when you talk about time travel, that's one of my. I love the topic of time travel. I love it. I love it.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. Now, do you believe that we have time? There's people on Earth who have time traveled that are actual people, or they are the people coming in. How can I say this? Do you think there's people going out, or do you think it's mostly people coming into this time?
Both.
Does that make sense?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think we do have time travel. It's different than what grew up in the 80s. So we think of time travel as jumping into a DeLorean 88 miles per hour with the flux capacitor 1.21 gigawatts, and off we go. It's not going to be that. As fun as that is, and as much as I would love that to be, I don't think that's what it is. We've talked a little bit about it already with, when I talk stacked time and time slips, which is a form of time travel. So people that have had those types of experiences, they might even think like it's a haunting or something like that. And it's more of like a time related experience. That boy with the young man with the shadow person in the kitchen, it's a time related incident, even though most people chalk that up to a shadow person incident or a doppelganger incident. It's more of like a time related incident. It is a type of time travel. I believe it comes down to more of the consciousness and meditation than it does a type of machine. And so, you can interact with these other points in time. When people have dreams or premonitory dreams, that's actually time travel. You're going to the future and bringing that information back with you. Again, all time is concurrent. So we can move in and about time. The idea of like astral projection, I believe is also the same concept that we can use to time travel, that we're not just, in this sense, not just projecting to some other place on the planet, or even some people astral project to other planets and these sorts of things, but you could actually set that intention and project to another point in time.
That's
Do you think that some of these remote viewers could be taken as time travelers? Sorry.
I mean, they could be if what they are viewing is at another point in time. Now, this is, again, you're projecting your energy somewhere, and you are viewing something. A lot of them seem to still be, on during our moment in time, but you could. I mean, it's the same sort of concept that instead of necessarily projecting to a specific point on the planet, again, you'd be projecting to a specific point in time. But again, it comes down to that specific frequency and finding that frequency to move from one point in the timeline to another, or one point in the stack to another.
Sean, go ahead before I rudely interrupted you.
Oh, no, you didn't. I was just making, okay, like, yeah, cool. I like that. This is interesting. That's what I was basically trying. But Kurt does have a question, it looks like.
Yeah.
He asked, the further you move away from the Earth and time slows down, couldn't that really be considered as a form of time travel?
So yeah, he's Kurt there was talking about time dilation, and they have done that with the astronauts, that as you move away from the Earth, that changes, or you just go to from the top of a mountain use an atomic clock, and it's very, very small, but that's going to be different than the time at the base of the mountain. And so yeah, that's time dilation. We could in a sense consider that a bit of time travel, because it does, at least according to here's the thing. Again, time doesn't really exist. It's the way it's what humans have devised in order to keep track of our reality, that to show up at work at the right moment, to attend the show here at the right moment, these sorts of things, to plant the crops when it's the proper time to do so, those sorts of things. And so that's a nice thing to keep us going as far as our society. When you remove yourself from that dimension of time, that issue with time dilation just kind of goes away, because you're outside the scope of it. All time exists. So that measurement that humans put on it is irrelevant. So an example that I like to use, and I actually use this for my my book trailer, is we usually view time as a river. It's all flowing downstream, all flowing in one direction. And in this analogy, the water is time.
Yeah.
And so, but the water doesn't make itself move. It's the banks of the river keeping the water in place that keeps it moving downstream. If you were to remove those banks, all that water would spill out into like a big lake or a pond or whatever, a big ocean. It would be all ever present. It wouldn't be moving at all. It would be stagnant in one place. So what's making that move is the banks. The banks are like the control set. They are the parameters that are keeping that moving. If you remove that control set, and we don't know what that control set is, being in the dimension that we're at, is it part of, we could get into the simulated universe? Is it, the rules of the simulation put upon us? That's a whole other discussion. But yeah, the banks are the rule set keeping that time moving for our experience here, but outside the fourth dimension, that no longer exists. Those rules are gone.
How many dimensions are there, Mike?
There are up to 11 hyperspatial dimensions, 0 through 10, at least as far as we know now. Now, physics down the road could determine something else, that maybe there's more. Some people speculate that there's more. We keep discovering new things all the time. So, just even like, how old is the universe? Well, you were thinking, 13 and a half, 14 billion years for a long, long time. And there were some scientists that came out a few months back and said, well, it might be closer to 27 billion years. So, they're always changing the numbers on us.
Getting back to the pyramids, do you think that's some kind, when they found those, what are those underneath the ground? I'm not sure what they're called.
The chambers under there?
Yeah, the chambers. Do you think that's some kind of a time travel portal?
I don't necessarily think it's some sort of time travel, or I run the Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour. We're going back in November, so we do talk about Stargates and portals and that sort of thing. The idea that there are large structures under the pyramids, it's really not that new of a concept. We already know that there are other chambers and shafts and these sorts of things under the entire Giza plateau. We were just, the Osiris shaft was discovered back in the 1930s, and you just walk around the Giza Plateau and you see the stuff all over the place. They have fences around these things so you don't fall in, right? So they're all over the place. So the idea that there's stuff under there is not surprising. Now, the fact that they are so large, is kind of has people a little, they're mind-boggling, I suppose. People say, well, it's deeper than the water table. Well, the water table was in a different place thousands of years ago. The Osiris shaft right now, is partially submerged. They didn't carve that out, underwater. So, and people also speculate that the ancient Egyptians had a water diversion system in place so that they could carve things out like the Osiris shaft and that sort of thing. The other thing that the Egyptian authorities didn't like about that was because the scans were done from space. You didn't have to get permission from the Egyptian authority to do the research. So, to do any sort of research out there, you have to go through them. There's a bunch of paperwork. You have to say exactly what you're doing, what you're looking for, this sort of thing. So, if you're saying, well, we think there's a tomb over here that has some mummies. Okay, fine. You can go search for the mummies over there. But if somebody was going to come up onto the Giza Plateau and say, yeah, we want to do some stuff because we think there's hidden chambers under the pyramids. No, we're not doing that. Just like in the early 90s with the Sphinx, Robert Schoch and John Anthony West, with their seismic testing, discovered a cavity there underneath the Sphinx, and boom, they got the boot out of there. They were shut down. So they hold tight control over what is actually being researched out there, and they were not happy that they were circumvented because these were done from space and they didn't need permission.
Oh, you got somebody, John Vad. What do you want to read that, John?
If you believe in creation, everything was created aged and whole. Radiometric dating doesn't work.
What do you think about that?
I
believe in a combination of creation and evolution. Why can't evolution be baked into the creation process? So creation for me, we'll talk about the Big Bang. All time being concurrent, yes, it's also cyclical. And we find those cycles throughout nature again and again and again. And we could go down a big rabbit hole with this, like the testing that was done down in Antarctica, where they discovered a parallel universe running in reverse time, which is bizarre. But this is the scientists with their neutrino testing down there. So I liken this to the ancient symbolism of the Ouroboros, where you have the snake eating its own tail. But when you look at that, and that's a symbol for constant recycle renewal. This was used, it's our first alchemical symbol. It was used on like the burial shrine of King Tut. You find it in a lot of the ancient Egyptian tombs and other places around the world. And, this was for, not just the recycling, renewing of like the king's life, but it was also recycle and renewal of the earth and also of the universe. That was the belief systems throughout the ancient world. And so when you look at the symbol itself, it has two tracks. It has the top side and then the underbelly, one running in one direction, one running the other. So you can liken this to those two universes, one running forward, one running backwards in time. And where they meet is where that mouth is eating the tail. And to me, that is the symbol of essentially the Big Bang. So this is the cyclical universe idea. So what comes after, or what came before the universe? People are like, what was before? It was the universe. What comes after the universe? The universe is this constant recycling, renewal. Yeah,
that is amazing stuff.
Interesting.
Amazing.
So John Ventry says James Webb's telescope is proving a Big Bang wrong. And very little evidence for evolution.
The James Webb Telescope has, and I don't agree with that assessment that the James Webb Telescope was proving the Big Bang wrong. It's discovering other things about the universe. It's discovering that there's much more out there than we previously knew about. They're finding, what they're calling hidden galaxies and things like that out there. They're also discovering other things about the curvature, at least that we can detect now, right? There's going to be other technology that comes out 20 years from now that's going to find other things. And there was a report that came out here about a month ago now talking about, our universe may actually be inside a black hole. Okay. So
I've heard that before.
Yeah, I mean, when we talked about stuff like that, when the idea of a black hole, first came out. I mean, the film, The Black Hole, the Disney film, when they finally went into the thing, which was basically like a big whirlpool in space. It wasn't really what a black hole is, but it was a film, and this was early on when we accepted black holes. They went through the thing and ended up in another universe somewhere, or at least maybe another galaxy. So, but this idea of us living in a black hole is not that different from what a lot of our theoretical physics have already discussed about there being multiple universes out there. That, because you take our planet inside a solar system. Our solar system is inside a galaxy. Our galaxy is inside of a universe. Our universe is inside of what's beyond that. So this idea of almost like these bubble universes that, ours, kind of like our planet, our universe, spun up in a Goldilocks zone that, had the right elements to be able to make it a successful universe, where these others, based on their nuclear composition and these sorts of things, some of them may have spun up very, very quickly and just died out immediately. Maybe some of them didn't have enough going on to really even get started. But ours, had enough going on that here we are.
That's crazy stuff.
Hi, Heidi. How are you? Good to see you.
So the two, Jolly Fox and John, are kind of arguing about the Big Bang.
Go for it.
The chat.
Have at it down in the chat, guys. That's going to be, here's the thing. None of us were around when it happened. Yeah. So we can argue about that all day long. There's always going to be two sides arguing that. And my thing on that is I think there's enough common ground, that we don't have to be in opposition, that one can actually prove the other. When we talk like between spirituality, supernatural, and science, I think one can prove the other. We made this separation a long time ago, and that has done us a disservice. Thousands of years ago, when take ancient Egypt and some of these other cultures, your scientists were the priests. They were one and the same. So when you needed to know what was the right time to plant the crops, your priests were the ones that had all the celestial alignments and everything. Like, this is the right time to do it. Your priests were your architects and engineers as well. So everything was integrated back then, and along the way we separated that out, which is unfortunate.
Definitely. What do you think of Go ahead.
Can I change the subject?
Sure.
Go for it.
You sure, Jenny? You're not going to get mad at me and kick me off the show?
I'm getting mad.
Okay.
Yeah, no, go right ahead.
Reading, I was fascinated when I was reading that you deal with portals, and how there's a lot of portals out there in the woods. Okay.
Yeah.
I did a show on Tuesday night about fairies, and I see a lot of fairy rings, and so did my listeners. Okay. And we thought about it, and I was wondering what your take would be, that when you see a fairy ring, a circle of mushrooms, if you stepped into that, is that a portal to another dimension?
Okay, well, first off, I have my book up here, Portals to the Stars, which goes into portals in the wilderness. Now, when it comes to the mushrooms, I mean, we're basically talking mycelium that's underground, and the mushroom is the fruit of the mycelium, and that is really just a natural kind of biological thing that happens with that particular organism, for lack of a better term. I don't know, would you call fungus an organism?
Yeah, according
But
to some of those zombie
yeah,
movies about
right. Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, Last of Us season
yeah,
2.
Last of Us with the
Right.
fungus.
Yeah, but at least for that particular form of life. Now that's not to say I don't believe in fairies and fairy rings and portals in the wilderness. I absolutely do, because I've had several experiences with fairies, and I talk about fascinating
Oh, you
experience that I
have?
had. Yeah, I talk about a fascinating experience I had at Hinsdale House in New York, where
Oh,
there were
you went to
these
the Hinsdale
blue
house.
lights. Yeah, I've been there a couple of
Yeah, I was
times.
there. Yeah.
What's interesting. So when we talk portals, so this is something that even our science says does exist, and they're even trying to create these things in the lab. But we do have naturally occurring what they call X points out in space. NASA said yes, these are actually portals. They open and close at random intervals. They've been trying to study them for 10 years, and they have no predictive pattern. They can only study them when they open, and they're going to close whenever they decide to close, and they open at varying sizes. And these ones out in space allow protons and electrons from the solar wind to enter into our atmosphere faster. But we do have all kinds of occurrences out in the woods of things where people go missing, and they have this missing time. Some people never come back. You don't know where they went. Some people talk about, I was on the path walking the woods, heard a noise off to the side, and I took 2 steps off the side of the path to take a look. Couldn't find what the noise was, turned around to get back on the path, and the path is gone, and I'm lost out in the woods for 3 days. What in the world happened? So it was like they stepped into a some sort of portal.
Yeah.
The one at Hinsdale House. So when we talk like portals, stargates, these sorts of things, everybody thinks of, traditionally Einstein-Rosen bridge, and it's this tunnel going through space, and they always think of like the opening of that, like a big giant circle that you walk into, like the Stargate film. You walk into the circle, and off you go. But I think the film Interstellar did a better job of representing this. That instead of a circle standing there, it's going to be a sphere, because a circle in 3-dimensional space is a sphere. So a lot of these like balls of lights that we see, like people see Sasquatch out in the wilderness with balls of light, people see ETs with balls of light and these sorts of things, or have these fairy experiences with balls of light. I think the balls of light themselves are, at least many of them, are the portals or stargates that are allowing these beings or entities to come into our world or our dimension. So the one there at Hinsdale House, it was a big giant blue ball of light that was bouncing around in the woods. We couldn't go all the way back there at the time because it was on the neighbor's property, and we didn't want to get Dan in trouble. So we're watching it there for a while. We're trying to like coax it forward, and it's just bouncing around through the woods. There it is. Okay. So we just came back down out of the woods, did some things in the house for a while, and then went out to the fire pit area and kind of sitting around for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, filtering down through the woods were these little blue lights. And it was fascinating. You had these ones that were in the air that were kind of twinkling. You had these others on the ground that were just kind of slowly glowing, like they would morph into existence and then dim back out. It was really fascinating. Cool. It really was. And so people say, well, these are probably, like fireflies or whatever. It's like, well, this was end of September, which was not firefly season. And blue fireflies, while they do exist down in the Carolinas, not in New York.
Yeah.
And so
right.
More fireflies. And we were down there like on our hand, like the ones that were on the ground, we're down there with flashlights on our hands and knees, because we're trying to determine, is this some sort of bug that we are seeing or something? Which it wasn't. We couldn't see anything. So I do feature this, and I have a second part to the Shadow Dimension that's coming up here. It's a 90-minute film rather than the 6-part docu-series. It's a 90-minute film called The Shadow Dimension Beyond the Shadows. Yeah.
What'd you say, Sean?
Joe Fox would like to know. Yeah, Joe Fox says this is a good question to you. Mike, how do you feel about manifesting a portal? Thoughts?
Yeah, I think you can do that. I mean, that's essentially what we were talking about earlier. We were talking about time travel and projection and that sort of thing. I think a lot of that you can consciously or use your consciousness to send yourself somewhere. So in that sense, you're the portal, you're the Stargate. Yeah, you can You can. I think when we talk about like these portal areas of Stargate, like, you know, we find the Stargates all over ancient Egypt. Like literally, the chambers are labeled Stargate on the side of them. I think that these were locations in which it had a certain attunement of energy that you could use to help enhance yourself and give yourself like a better experience, or maybe help you along that journey, so you'd have a better chance of success.
Cool. We're going to start taking some of these questions because we're getting back. Skelter, I think that's how you say, isn't it? Says, I have a question. If portals exist in the forest and a lot of people seem to go missing in these portals, could it be possible that some of these missing people found this portal? Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, they would be finding the portal. Now, again, these are randomly occurring, so it's not always going to be if I step into this one spot, you know, and that's where it always is. In some cases that could. Here's the thing, so like a lot of our, you know, ancient sites of power, stone circles, these sorts of things, they are built on those, you know, energetic spots to help harness that energy, but it's a pulsating energy. There's an ebb and a flow to these things, so it's not always going to be active. In the ones out in the woods, I mean, it might not be along one of those energetic spots, but there's always earth energy around. I mean, it's the magnetism of the earth's core that's expanding outward, that's interacting with different metals and minerals in the ground. So you know, these things can just, you know, randomly occur. And again, you know, like with the X points out in space, that's an interaction between the solar wind and the Earth's magnetism, which does go all the way down to, you know, the ground of the Earth, the Earth's surface. So, so yeah, these things can, even ones in the sky, they can happen in the sky. Planes go missing all the time. Bruce Gernon had a fascinating experience down there in the Bermuda Triangle, where all of a sudden he zipped ahead in time like an hour. Yeah, you have some of these fascinating incidents like this.
So you think the Bermuda Triangle is a portal?
It can generate portals, yeah.
They used to have so many docu-series on that. They hardly don't have any more. That's some place that I think they should start doing more. What was that, Sean?
They had one a couple of years ago. Yeah,
they did.
When I was in the Navy, I went through the Devil's Bermuda Triangle like 3 or 4 times. I'm here.
Yeah, you can cruise right through there. My parents cruise through there all the time.
I'm here.
And that's the thing is it's not, you know, constantly occurring, which is one of the issues that, of course, you know, traditional science has with us talking about these sorts of things, is that like, okay, you know, make it happen on a repetitive basis, and you can't make it happen on a repetitive basis, and that's what makes it so mysterious. So, yeah,
it's amazing. It's just, there's just so much. So, okay, what do we have? Okay, what do you understand anything he's talking about? The KGB,
the KGB report, ETs. Oh yeah, I saw that. That's really interesting because that was a declassified CIA document that you know, intelligence grabbed from the Soviets 35 years ago. This was like, you know, at the very end of the Soviet Union, and yeah, they shot down over Siberia this UFO, and you know, the craft crashed, and these ETs, this is according to the report from, you know, the Soviets, is that these ETs formed up. There were like 5 of them that formed up into one, shot out like this beam of light, turned a bunch of the Soviets into stone, and this beam then just kind of blew itself up. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with my screen. It keeps going up and down. This is as portals are opening up in here again.
No, I wouldn't doubt it, buddy. I don't know. God only knows where you are.
I know.
It probably is, man. But this is pretty interesting. I'm really fascinated.
It's a lot of it's generated underwater portals. Do you talk about?
There are some interesting things that occur underwater. I was talking with a gentleman a couple of years ago. It was at Phenomenon. He was a guest there. He had been involved with the Navy when he was younger, but then he was doing some different. He was involved with a deep sea research team, and they had discovered underwater this glowing cube, and we're talking like thousands of feet down in the water or something like this. And yeah, they didn't touch it. They weren't supposed to do anything with it, but he was a witness to seeing this thing underwater, whatever it was.
A lot of those UAPs are going underwater. I wish they. Let me ask you that. Do you think they're going to disclose anything that we haven't already heard about?
They will only talk about what they absolutely have to. They're not going to give us anything. So it got to the point here over the last several years that they had to admit something was going on. Yes, okay, fine. There are things going on in the sky that we can't explain, because technology for the common person became such to the point that everybody's running around with a HD or better camera in their pocket with their cell phone, so you can take these magnificent photos and videos and all this. So they had to admit something was going on that they can't explain, but they are going to do whatever they can to control the narrative. And when you watch the congressional hearings, which is fantastic that they are having those, because it gives validity to us who have been doing the research for all of these years, that yes, we're not crazy, something's going on. Look, now even the government is seriously talking about it again. But the actual content of the conversation is nothing new to people who have been following this for years and years and years. When they're talking about there are videos that people can't explain. Okay, yeah, we've seen that. There's crashed or material from crashed craft that the government has taken away and hidden somewhere. Okay, we'll talk about that too. It's nothing new, but it is good that they've put it into the public discussion.
It's amazing. What are your thoughts on Atlantis? Do you think that was like go ahead.
Well, and that's part of the book too. So, portals to the star, inside stargates, Atlantis, secrets of ancient Egypt. So, yeah, Atlantis. I mean, here's the thing: it wasn't called Atlantis, right?
No.
The Greeks called it Atlantis. Plato called it Atlantis. I mean, they changed the name of everything. Like they call Egypt wasn't Egypt. That's the Greeks called it Aegyptus, where the Egyptians, to them it was Kemet, which was the black land, which had to do with the black soil that rushed down the Nile River during the inundation season. So, the Greeks just came in and changed everything. Atlantis is actually, the story originates with the Egyptians. They called it the homeland of the primeval ones. Uh-huh. And you can find part of that story on the walls at the Temple of Horus at Edfu. So, this was it was a worldwide culture. It spread out to great lengths. Everybody focuses on the capital city of Atlantis and, the famous ringed city and all that. But it was a culture that expanded across a good part of the world. And yes, it met with catastrophe. So, the big controversy comes in, Plato is the one that we have like 99% of this material from. There's like a tiny little bit from Plutarch where he kind of mentions it, and then that's it. But so it's mostly from Plato, at least the story that we have right now. And it was, so people try to say, well, they look for kind of contemporary locations in relationship to Plato. So like Santorini and all these other locations that would have been there in Plato's time. But here's the thing, is like even Plato tells you in there that it's not contemporary to him. He got the story from the Greek philosopher Solon hundreds of years beforehand. Solon was the Greek philosopher that went to Egypt and got the story. And he was there about 600 BC, talked to these priests at the Temple of Sais, the Temple of Heliopolis. And the priests there are saying, well, yeah, this happened 9,000 years ago. So if you do the math, that's 9,600 BC, right? Which puts it around the time of the Younger Dryas and the era in which the Great Cataclysm happened, that every culture across the world talks about the Great Cataclysm, the flood, all that. And so this is essentially the Atlantis story, but it's the homeland of the primeval ones. And what's funny is as Solon is talking to these priests, he's trying to tell them, the Greek version of the Great Cataclysm And the priest there, Sanchi, starts laughing at him. He's like, hold on. You Greeks are but children. There have been many cataclysms that have happened. You guys keep forgetting these things. Your civilization would get wiped out, and the only guys that were left were like the goat herders up in the mountains. They had to come back down and try to reestablish civilization without any education, having to restart from scratch again. So this is something that's happened again and again and again. And yeah, at Atlantis,
so
that culture
fascinating.
did exist. Yeah.
So I'd like to have you at a bonfire one night. You can just talk and talk and talk. Curtis
Yeah.
says Bermuda Triangle, I feel, however, is being opened and closed, and whatever they're using it being stored underwater and projected out, like sucking them in a vacuum, not liking. What do you think about that? Walking through, opening and
Not
closing?
really. I'm kind of not sure what he's
I
necessarily
think he's saying that
there, but
the triangle opens and closes like a portal, that it opens whenever it
Well,
feels like sucking in.
Okay, so in that
Sucking the
sense,
stuff.
yeah, again, it's as that magnetism is kind of pulsating through the earth. It has to do with under the surface. There's different metals and minerals that are there. The sizes of the deposits are different. It's creating these various localized electromagnetic fields. So when you're talking about this electromagnetism, you're going to have points where it's stronger than others, and when it hits a point of strength, then some of these different things are going to happen. So portals could open, or a variety of different things. The one that I really like to talk about is like the Alaska Triangle, because you're talking about a lot of different energies up there. You have the electromagnetism there. Yeah, you have the electromagnetism. Like the U.S. Department of the Interior did a survey there in the 60s. It talked about negative anomalies with the electromagnetism up there in these different areas. You've got seismic energy, you've got volcanic energy, you've got they have their aurora borealis up there all the time, like the northern lights. And so you have that in the magnetic protection up there is a little bit thinner, so you're having the solar wind bombard that area as well. So I call it like a fantastic cocktail of energies, and just depending on where these things are fluctuating, a lot of different things can happen, but like with those portals out in space, it's unpredictable as to when they're going to open and close. Now, the difference between a portal and a Stargate, would be an intelligent being being able to harness the power of a portal for their own means, to be able to come and go at will, whether that's some other place in the cosmos, another dimension, somewhere else on the planet, another point in time. So in that sense, is there somebody in the Bermuda Triangle with operating Stargate, like maybe underwater or something? Maybe. Yeah.
It's so fascinating. I there's so many questions. The chat is really blowing up, but the one Skelter says, have you heard of Graham Hancock?
Oh yeah. I've got Graham's books, and we're friends on Facebook, although I've never met him. So yeah.
He says it's looking like humanity did in fact have an issue with reset due to catalysm. Yeah,
and that's the thing. So yeah, a lot of, and it's funny because a lot of what Graham talks about, is stuff that Plato talked about in his work. That the cataclysms and the lost civilization, and basically you had the Greek Sanchis laughing at Solon. You Greeks are but children, and all that, and you guys have had many cataclysms and you don't remember because the goat herders had to come down here and reestablish everything. It's that same thing. So Graham says we're a species with amnesia, and in that conversation there between the priest and the philosopher, the priest is telling the philosopher, you guys have amnesia, you don't remember this.
Yeah, it could be. There's a really long comment.
Want me to read that for you?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay, Neil says, why try to fix a broken system when we can replace it? I mapped the matrix of slavery and then mathematically destroyed it. I am the author of this book, and I would like to introduce you to the birth of a brand new global republic. What? The Republic of Area is not just an idea. It is the first system of governance and civilization designed by A large language model with the explicit goal of manufacturing freedom for all and slavery for none. Every existing system of mankind be in something.
I don't know
Wow.
what he's trying to say.
Neil, I'm
What?
kind of lost on that one, my
I don't know if
friend.
he was just trying to
You know,
plug his book.
I don't. Well, if this, he plugs his book, he plugs his book, but what
But
can he
there's
do?
just any comments or questions, John, before we wrap it up?
You know what? Honestly,
And-
I would like to get you on my podcast. And there's another
Sure.
podcast that I do on Friday nights. If you're like up late, like 10 p.m., I'd like to get you on there too.
Yeah, we can do that. It'll be a little while. I'm about to head out to the UK here next week, and then I have some
wow.
events
Oh,
right when I get
God.
back.
You're
I'm
gonna
going to
go
be
to
out in LA and then back here in Ohio for
Okay.
some events. Yeah.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
not-
No, I mean, is
Busy
that where
man.
you're
And you're
from,
going to
Ohio?
Egypt again.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah,
going to
Egypt is
man.
in November. Yeah.
That's exciting.
But no,
Any
I
last
really
comments,
enjoyed
guys?
you.
Yes,
I
I
really
did
enjoyed
too.
your show.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I did, Mike. I
Any-
really did. Thank you.
Any last questions or comments in the chat? Okay, we're going to go then. Okay, they're just saying thank you. Well, it was really great having you. Believe me, you should come
Yes,
on when
Mike.
John's on. I'm sure you met John Ventry. You can have a debate.
No, that'd be
But
good.
thank you again
I'd
for
have to
tuning
bust
in.
out the popcorn.
Yeah,
there you
bust
go.
out the popcorn. But thank you so much, Mike, for
Thank you.
coming on again. You have a great night.
Yeah.
Have a
Enjoy your
happy
evening.
Easter.
Take care. Yeah. Happy Easter.
Bye-bye. Well, that was
night,
fantastic.
Mike.
I had so many questions, but
Oh,
there's
my
just so
God,
many.
yes.
There's just so many you can ask him. He's so intelligent and so articulate. I like to plug people's minds like that. There's just so many things going on in the world, the universe. I wanted to ask him about the Northern Lights. Why did we get to? Why we were able to see them in Pennsylvania? I just don't understand that. But that's a whole new topic for another day. Any other
Heck
comments or questions you guys have for us? And they don't. We'll stay on for another 5 or 10 minutes, and we'll talk about it. But that was great. I still don't know about the portals. It's going back to even like Skinwalker Ranch.
I'm having, the more I look into Skinwalker Ranch, the more I'm like thinking it's another Oak Island. Okay.
Yeah, but
yeah, I do. It's just they keep finding the same things and seeing the same thing. And you can go to Area 51 or wherever, and you can find all the UFOs and mystical situations that go on. I mean, you can go somewhere else. And I believe they're just in it for the money and the ratings, to be honest with you.
oh yeah, there's a like it.
But
Some
still,
of
I
the things
mean,
are really
like,
terrifying. I mean,
what's terrifying?
no,
What's
some
so
of the things that it
terrifying
could
about
be that's terrifying because you think
Right.
about all the things that happened in Skinwalker Ranch. It goes back to are they indigenous people? I don't want to get
And then, it could have been. How about up where you're? How about the mountains
Chestnut
where you're
Ridge.
at? Chestnut Ridge. I'm sure there was Native Americans. I think Chestnut Ridge is a lot more scarier than that ranch.
The time travel stuff really. I'm fascinated with time travel. I just think when you do see the shadow people, I do think that those could be time travelers instead of just shadow people or aliens or demonic forces. But I think when you all of a sudden you see that shadow go by you, to me that's a time travel. Now, I should have asked them. You can't go back, but you can't go forward in time. You can only go back in time.
You cannot go back in time. You can't. You can't go back in time.
Or is it forward in time?
Well, if you go back in time, you better.
Anybody know in the chat? Anybody know? Should I ask ChatGPT? Let me ask ChatGPT.
You live off
Might
of
as well
that.
ask ChatGPT.
That's your cheat sheet.
My boyfriend.
That's your cheat sheet.
Chat, can you go forward in time or is it back in time? But that doesn't make.
Hey,
Go ahead.
gotcha. I can't time travel, but I can definitely help you explore the past or speculate about the future. What's on your mind?
I want to know if time travel is possible. Could you go forward or backwards in time?
Classic time travel question. It's still a concept in science fiction. While theories like Einstein's relativity suggest possibilities, we haven't cracked it in reality. What fascinates you most about it?
I just wanted to know if you knew the answer. Can we go forward or backwards?
Ah,
She had a
okay.
definitive
Okay.
answer. Right now, time travel remains theoretical.
Wait,
We
what
can
is,
only move-
you can go forward and you can only go back to the point of where the time machine was created. Oh yeah, well, if there is a time machine, do you guys think there is a time machine somewhere? Do you think they have cracked the code? Some people speculate that Kennedy was assassinated by a time
I
traveler.
don't.
No?
He was assassinated by the CIA. Come on.
Yeah, well, this time traveler came back and he
I
got
believe
his
that
little.
wholeheartedly.
I don't know, John.
Why are
If
you
I
so
was a time
fascinated with
traveler,
time traveling, Jenny?
I don't know.
Yeah, what would you
My
do?
ChatGPT has a touch of the child. That's so rude. I don't know. I think I would like to go fix some things that I screwed up with, but that's okay. That's a time. That's a show. That's for another day. But we're getting close to the witching hour. I just want to ask: does anybody have a question for Mr. Predictor? Sean?
Do I have a question for Mr. Predictor? Am I getting a pay raise?
Sean wants to know if he's getting a pay raise. Do I have it on? I'm going to turn it off.
Ran out of batteries.
It's not the right time to tell you.
Kind of figure, man. Thank you.
Is it Mr.
But,
Predictor? Is it time travel really possible in this 2025? Because we don't know if it is time travel is possible, and he's connected to ChatGPT probably. Any last questions for Mr. Predictor before we head off? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Nobody.
No doubt.
No doubt that we have to go. Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody.
Good night, everybody.
I want to thank everyone for participating in the chat today. Please share the link. It makes us grow. And if you have anybody that would be a good guest for the show, send them our way. And if you think you have it, what it takes to have your own podcast and talk about anything, I don't care. It could be like Seinfeld. Definitely send me a direct message and I'll send you over to our recruiter. We are looking to expand. We are expanding. We got 5 new shows last week. So I'm excited and I want you to be excited. And I want to thank you again for joining us and have a happy Easter and go to church if you can. No, you don't have to go
Happy
to church
Easter.
for Good Friday.
Happy Easter.
But yeah, take some time tomorrow to think about the one who made all this and it wasn't a bang bang. Okay, have a great night. Gotta find the end stream. Bye, everyone. Okay.
Bye.